My name's Steve Marvel. I'm a survival and rescue specialist. And today I'm going to talk about burns. I'm going to talk about burns, how to self treat, when to get a medical professional involved, and what you would do in a survival situation to try and treat burns and what are the possible problems there. I'd just like to add that I am not a doctor or a paramedic, and this advice is based on my training. And I'd like you to follow up this video by checking with your local health authority website. We would choose, for instance, the NHS, and there are various WebMD and the like. But always get a secondary bit of advice, just like you would if you were foraging for mushrooms. You'd use two sources. I am one source. Go and find another to solidify that information. But as I say, I got my training within the RNLI, within a search and rescue organization. And so here we are. This is what is going to come from me to you. There are four, well, people say six, three, whatever. There are four different sorts of burns. They are associated with 3 layers of skin and it all going to a handbasket underneath there. So let's start. We will start with epidermis. This is the top layer of skin. And if you might have superficial epidermal, or whatever the word, top layer of skin burns. This is the sort of thing where you just got a little bit of burn. No skin has been damaged. You've almost certainly not got anything that looks like a blister. You'd treat that by running it under the cold tap and maybe whacking some aloe vera on it. The only time that this is problematic is if you've got a lot of it and it's causing a great deal of pain. That is a case where something weird is going on. At that point, you should be phoning 111 in our case, which is our non-emergency medical line, to get advice from a professional. But generally speaking, a little bit of whoopsie on your finger, that superficial epidermal burn, is nothing to write home about. Superficial dermal burns are the next layer of skin. And this is where you sort of, let's say, this is scald territory, if you like. This is where you've accidentally put your hand on a hot handle of a pan, say, and it really hurt. This is where you would be running that under the tap. Let's just, again, if you've got lots of it, medical professional. But if you've got a bit of that, this is this superficial, small scale burn. You'll be running that under the tap and applying some cream. If you've got blisters, don't be popping them. We talked about blisters when we were talking about walking. But yeah, keep that cool, keep that moisturized. If pain worsens or doesn't go away, consult a medical professional. If you can't get the redness to go down, consult a medical professional, because at that point, something else is going on. and that's no good at all. Now we're getting into thick burns. Now, the next one is partial thickness burns. This is where you've done something really stupid, and you've got prolonged exposure to something hot. This is your, oh my God, I've got my hand on the iron or the ring of the cooker, and for some reason you've got that seriously blistering red and weirdly either incredibly painful or incredibly not painful. This potentially, with the amount of blisters, will involve a certain amount of things sticking to you. So yes, you need to clean what's going on, but if there's something stuck to you, do not remove it. Yeah, this is where we've got a problem. Yeah, certainly if you've got a lot of it, this is an emergency. This is a big deal, because what's going on with burns that are splitting the skin or blistering significantly is, yes, there is tissue damage, and yes, it's painful, or there's nerve damage and it's not painful. But what you are prone to is infection. And this is going to require antibiotics. And so if you've got burns, which will continue, they're not going to muck around. They don't instantly cool. If they're really, really hot, they will continue to burn you and turn into full-on burns. This is an emergency. Get hold of an emergency service, because this is problematic. If you've got a lot of this is really, really quite problematic. You need to cool that burn, and you need to cover that burn. And you want to cover that burn with cling film or shrink wrap or plastic wrap or whatever it is it's called. What you just need to stop the good germs getting in as much as possible. If you've got burns on the face, then you want to be sat up. Obviously, don't put cling film over people's mouths. That would be madness. Now, there are two things I want to talk about whilst I think of them. One, if there's children or elderly people or people with existing medical problems, even if they're superficial burns, certainly if there's a lot, then you need to be talking potentially to an emergency service, but certainly to a non-emergency advice line. This is one of those situations where you want to be overcautious. You really, really do need to be considering the worst. This is not one it'll be okay. Because if you've got partial or full thickness burns, then you are seriously prone to infection, and that is problematic. So yeah, if you've got existing medical problems, particularly young, particularly old, then yes, this is potentially an emergency. And if you've got partial thickness burns, no matter how much you've got, this is an emergency. You're going to have blotchy, blistery skin. You almost certainly can have no feeling, because it's going to be cauterized skin. Within the skin, the nerves will be damaged. This is problematic. Now, another thing to note whilst I think of it, and I'll do a completely different thing altogether, is if this is associated with fire and there was smoke, then this is an emergency, because when there's, and I'll do a completely different video on this, is that if there is smoke, hot air, and that is in the nasal passages or in the lungs, then not only have we got soot and the like, but that heat might have damaged the hairs in the esophagus and created potential allergic reaction within, a reaction of medical sorts. I can't remember exactly what it is, within the lungs, which means you can't breathe well. But anyway, yes, fire, always a problem. Smoke, inhalation, always a problem. That's an emergency. So, partial thickness burns, that's an emergency. You are considering infection. Full thickness burns is where it's all gone to hell in a handbasket. This is, I've only seen this in videos. It's not pleasant. And I don't suggest you look it up unless you have an academic interest. Full thickness burns is white flesh. It's black flesh. It's completely numb. You're down to fat and a muscle tissue. You're having a serious problem. This is a super emergency. So much so that you need to say this on your call. There is no, I've got some burns. You want to say, I have a significant amount of full thickness burns and I need advice and I need an emergency ambulance. You want to instill in the operator's mind that this is a priority one situation. And not only do you need somebody coming fast, but you need continuous advice as to what to do in terms of cooling, in terms of covering, etc. And they will let you know. So in summary, sorry, I got quite emotional. In summary, there are largely 4 different types of burns. There are 2 sorts of superficial burns, which you, unless there is a significant amount of them, if the person is young, if the person is old, or if there's an existing medical condition, or it's just not going away, then you can self-treat. But the point at which you are getting partial, full thickness burns, this is an emergency situation, and you should be getting hold of an emergency service. So what do you do in a survival situation? Well, in an expedition, say, medical kit, we like to have cling film, specifically for burns. We did in RNLI as well. And when I'm teaching, my trauma kit, my burns kit has cling film in it because of that covering of an infected area, a potentially infectious, the area where you can potentially get infection would be covered. Yes, you might think, oh, I'm not going to faff around with that in my first aid kit, putting a whole roll of cling film in. But you could just have a little bit, on a small spindle, even if it's like that much by that much. Then that's going to be better than nothing. And if you are camping, for instance, then as is the case in courses, lacerations, sprains, and burns are the most likely injuries. You can get burn bags as parts of first aid kits, which are great for going on gloves as like mittens looking things. You can get big ones, small ones. You can get that because the cling film is obviously sticky, annoying. But what's very difficult, unless you've got a load of snow, is cooling burns, and that has to be done in a way. If you're going to use water, certainly a standing body of water, you're going to risk the potential situation of infection from a waterborne thing that's going to instantly penetrate. So what do? Well, as you should be a good survivor, you should have plenty of prepared water, clean water. That is a good time to use that. And yes, a standing or flowing body of water could be colder. But if you have the opportunity to do so or construct something, if you can create something that's watertight, let's say you have it over your arm, because this is where you get burns. You get burns on your fingers and your hands and your arms normally when you are operating in a campfire type environment. If you just had a plane crash, then wow, this is getting make a judgment. What is the risk if your burns are going to continuously get worse? Are you going to jump into a freezing cold stream to sort yourself out? I think I probably would, but don't take that as read. Just that's my opinion of what I might do. And yes, it will be circumstance specific. All sorts of, that's the hell in a handbasket territory. So yes, if you can create a watertight situation, if you've got a plastic bag, you can stick a watertight arm into a flowing or standing body of water, and you can cool your burn down without the risk of exposure to that water and exposure to potential infection. So that is all about burns, superficial burns, partial and full thickness burns, when it's an emergency, on how to treat them in a survival situation. And I would like for you to comment your thoughts on this, because there are a number of ideas, there are a number of different advices in different countries. And if you think things are an emergency earlier than I have said, or at least advised in a cursory way, not a concrete way, then you just let us know in the comments, and let us know what you want in other medical type videos, and I shall supply. There has been some suggestions about trying to talk about first aid, and first aid's all good outdoors. It's such an arse to, for instance, in the wind, try and bandage your own ankle with one arm. That's the sort of thing we'll be doing. So, suggestions for medical videos in the comments, and I'll see you next time.